Hello and welcome to Narayana IS Academy, your one-stop destination for making the UPSC dream a reality. With UPSC Prelims 2025 round the corner, here's wishing you all the best and doing everything that we can via this platform to make your performance smooth, efficient and timely. And therefore, I welcome you today in this session where we are going to discuss some important schemes that were in the news all of last few months. Questions in the prelims exam can be directly based on these schemes. Apart from that, you could also have certain elimination options based on the objectives, features, targets, and the coverage of these schemes which were created by the government across diverse sectors in the Indian economy. So let's begin with the first context in the news, and this is about the National Mission on Natural Farming. Now, as the name suggests, and as we already know, that government has been giving a lot of focus on poshan, that is the right nutrition among people, and this all began with the Poshan Abhiyan, the right eating or the Eat Right movement in India, where the government is persistently trying that Indian population should adopt not only organic farm produce but also we should encourage concepts like the Poshan Vatikas, where we are focusing now upon growing organic native species of crops in such a manner that they are not only devoid of any chemical usage but also they involve the community at large, and hence this mission also talks about natural farming where we can be as organic and as eco-friendly as possible. So let's talk about what exactly do we mean when we say natural farming. Well, if farming is about agro-systems, if it is about cropping, if it's about growing, tending to crops, then natural farming means a method that is doing some kind of a biomimicry. Now, this word has acquired a completely new meaning in the last few months. When we say biomimicry, we are saying that today the government is insisting that in India we go back to natural farming practices which are essentially chemical free. They are rooted in Indian traditional agriculture knowledge, where we often spoke about natural polycropping, natural bamboo system, or the trickle system irrigation pattern, where we talk about using organic manures as the fertilizers and we do not depend on much medicines to combat the problem of insects and pests. Now, that's the kind of agriculture that ensures not only ecological but also human health sustainability in a long run. Given the very high incidence of the non-communicable diseases in India, which are rising at the pace of almost 2 to 3% per annum, we need to make sure that natural farming uses organic inputs such as the use of Jeevamrit, Bijamrit. Now, all these components are based and derived from nature, which means that they not only reduce the dependence on chemicals and medicines, but in the long term also it takes care of soil fertility and soil health. It prevents you from going in a vicious cycle where the more medication is given to soil, eventually the more alkaline the soil becomes, and then you are caught in the rut of constantly investing in chemicals and then taking human and ecological health for a toss. And therefore we say that natural farming is a wonderful intervention, which means we are now going back to our heritage, our traditional cropping practices using the principles of agroecology, creating a kind of uniformity between agriculture and ecological realities of Indian subcontinent. Now, this therefore also promotes livestock integrated farming, where the concept of mixed farming comes into picture. Now, please understand there is a thin difference between polycropping and when I say mixed farming. When we say polycropping, it's an age-old method of Indian agriculture where the farmers would grow multiple food crops together at a very intermittent distance from each other so that the constant nitrogen fixation and the constant aeration of soil takes place. In that case, the soil nutrition profile is kept intact. It's very against the logic of monocropping that became popular only via the Green Revolution of 1960s and onwards. So although monocropping and commercial farming produce short-term cash benefits for the farmers, but in the long term they also increase the dependence on more and more fertilizer, pesticides, medications, and hybrid varieties, genetically modified varieties to improve your output. Whereas the natural farming, although it means growing many crops together, the polycultural farming, but at the same time, you are also making sure that your groundwater soil is not getting intoxicated, they are not getting toxified because of chemicals. But mixed farming means a farmer is not only growing crops but also he is into livestock. They are also maintaining animal rearing at the same time. Now again, these are very closely linked concepts. So this natural farming also includes that you need to go for livestock integrated farming, you need to go for diverse or polycropping culture back again, and please use natural proponents of crop growth such as the Jeevamrit and the Bijamrit. At the same time, we are saying that this is a climate resilient agriculture, of course, because today, as we are facing the vagaries of monsoon, pretty much in 2024 across India, we were hit with a paucity of rainfall, all owing to the El Nino La Nina impact that keeps kicking in every now and then. And of course, we talk about the ocean water heating up. We talk about a complete reversal of seasons. We talk about the high heat waves. All that definitely impact agriculture. And in India, we have had a tendency of being too dependent on the weather. And therefore, we have to develop a mechanism where we can face climate changes with more elasticity. And this seems like the perfect solution here, so that not only do you get nutritious food, but also your farming practices are coping with nature change at the same time, climate change at the same time. So here, as we talk more about the National Mission on Natural Farming, please understand the scheme is a completely central government sponsored scheme undertaken by the Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare. Let's also understand that the government has given a massive fund outlay, that's about 2,481 crore until 2026 for the development and implementation of this plan successfully. Now, of course, the state government share is about rupees 897 crores, which means it's primarily a centrally funded scheme. Now, there are some integral goals of this mission. One of this is chemical-free agriculture, as we spoke about. Another crucial goal here is giving support to farmers to reduce the input costs. Yes, whenever the farmers have to finance for inputs, be it in terms of agriculture tools, basic mechanization, basic use of seeds, basic use of organic manure, then financial support and subsidies shall be provided. We talk about improving market access. The farmers will be getting better ways to access markets so that the products are sold at a fixed price to minimize the chance of any loss to the farmer, so that the farmers are encouraged to adopt natural farming even in the long run. It should be a very lucrative business to actually influence more and more people to take up to natural agriculture. Similarly, we talk about creating nutritious chemical-free food. Again, this is quite in line with the concept of Poshan Vatika, where now the government is saying that under the scheme that talks about providing nutritious meal to children in government schools, earlier this was known as the free meal scheme. Okay, under that scheme, pretty much we say that within the government schools itself, NGOs, communities, school teachers, and general, even volunteers from normal walk of life can come and create organic food gardens. Now, vegetables and produce from here can be created to distribute healthy, nutritious meals to children. It's a wonderful intervention there. And let's understand that this also promotes biodiversity, because the more you depend on genetically modified imported crops, the more your native species die. Okay, so in order to prevent the native species, let's ensure that we encourage local crops in a very, very organic way. Now, having said that, another important thing to remember would be that some key initiatives taken under this mission would be cluster and farmer reach. Now, we need to talk about implementing this scheme in more than 15,000 clusters in the Gram Panchayat in just another 2 years. That's important. Again, let's remember that the target is to reach around 1 crore farmers in a short period of time by covering more than 7.5 lakh hectares of land. This should be brought into natural farming. Quite an ambitious mission there. Then let's understand that we are talking about a concept known as BRC, where we say that bio input resource centers have to be created to provide farmers with easy access to natural farming inputs. Now, if you want people to adopt to natural farming on a major scale, it's equally pertinent that you provide them finance to afford these inputs more easily. At the same time, we are talking about Krishi Vigyan Kendra, where research, innovation, techniques can be envisaged so that more and more farmers could be trained in natural farming methods. Now, the training is very important here. And we need to also have 2000 natural farming model demonstrations. First, run it as a sample demonstration. Let more and more farmers come and learn the strategies of natural farming from here, and therefore they can go ahead and implement them. Of course, by providing them financial benefits, we are making sure that it's an inspirational thing for many more people to come and adopt this method. Of course, we talk about creating awareness and hands holding. Not only do we need to make people aware, but also we need to hands hold them. We need to make sure that awareness programs are created, and there are Krishi Sakhis. Now, Sakhi in Hindi really means a friend or an ally, somebody who's helping you to do something, a helper. So we are creating agro helpers where people will come and help the farmers in order to implement the mission more successfully. And now, having said that, let's also understand that there is a geotagged monitoring that's going to happen too, which means in real time. Real time means very quickly, absolutely immediately. There has to be a monitoring through an online portal to see whether the scheme is being implemented in the real beneficial way or not. And this is known as geotagged monitoring, where we are keeping a track, keeping a monitoring upon the effective implementation of the scheme really. And now with this, let's understand there is a certification and branding element of the mission too, wherein we are making sure that all the produce that's coming out of natural farming, created and grown by these farmers, will have some kind of a certification behind it. It shall be a mark of its purity, authenticity. And also to let the consumers know that yes, this is a product of pure natural farming, so that those people who are health conscious, those who actually want to avoid chemical processed products in the market, could easily come to know. They could identify better that this is a natural farming method induced product, which means people would invest in it. They would buy it more easily. So certification and branding also gives recognition, unique identity, and some kind of a support system to the farmers. Then there is student engagement. I think this is one of the most key pillars of this scheme. Very interesting, because now we are democratizing the scheme really. We say that we are introducing dedicated, specialized undergraduate, postgraduate, diploma courses to encourage more and more young students studying agriculture to take up knowledge and know-how of natural farming. Now, this is very important, because unless the young, the new generation farmers or people associated with the bioagriculture industry, even for that matter people who are studying soil sciences, until they are hands-on in rural agriculture work experience programs, they would never really know the implementation technicalities. So I think this academic intervention again stands out tall, and this is all that we need to actually remember thoroughly about the national mission on natural farming. So make sure you know the target, make sure you know the objective, make sure you know the key features associated with it, and I think that's pretty much the kind of question that we can expect in the exam. Also from the mains perspective, it's quite important to understand that many times in your GS paper 3, even in GS paper 2, because we talk about social justice, poverty, nutrition mission, so we must understand that all these are essentially initiatives which aim at both things parallelly. On the one hand, we talk about sustainable ecology, bioagriculture that's sustainable. On the other hand, it equally focuses upon good health. It is absolutely a key component of the Poshan Abhiyan. Okay, so all those concepts, the Titi Graha and the Poshan Vatika, and making sure that people come and volunteer to provide good food to students, to community, some kind of a natural fortification of food, all these are essentially under the ambit of natural farming. So make sure we are thorough with this scheme so that we have critical points to cover in such questions. Now with that, we move on to the next contextual news piece today, which talks about how the Pradhan Mantri, the Prime Minister Kisan Maandhan Yojana, has successfully completed 5 years now. So we talk about the Prime Minister PM-FBY, the Pradhan Mantri Maandhan Yojana in general. So let's exactly check out what is the scheme all about. So here's a depiction which shows that how this was again launched in 2019 as a completely centrally sponsored scheme. Please remember, The ministry again was Ministry of Agriculture Family Welfare, as with most agriculture schemes. More important is to remember the objective of the scheme. So what was the target really of the PM-KISAN scheme? Clearly the main target was to provide old age protection, social security to all land holding small and marginal farmers in India, abbreviated as the SMFs. Now, I'm sure this rings a bell somewhere. When we say providing old age protection, providing social security to old age farmers, obviously it resonates very well with another scheme that talks about providing insurance cover to all Indians who are below the poverty line or who are below certain fixed income level per annum. Which is that scheme that I'm talking about? You know that I'm talking about the PM-JAY, the Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana, which could also sometimes be synonymous to your Ayushman Bharat Yojana. So again, from 2019 to 2020, the government had made a very revolutionary intervention in the PM-JAY by stating that from now onwards, even the transgender population would be covered for all their treatment expenditures under the Ayushman Bharat. They will be given these cards too. The free government insurance, one of the largest of its kind in the world. So definitely this resonates with that. So I would encourage you to remember all the features of that scheme too, because it not only touches upon your health system, but also it completely is about social justice, given that today we are identifying another segment of Indian population which has been vulnerable for a very long point of time. So you also should know all the nuances like the primary, secondary and the tertiary healthcare under PM-JAY. So just please remember that too. Now jumping back to the PM-KMY scheme at hand, the Maandhan Yojana. Let's say that the eligibility here, who will be the beneficiary of this mission? Of course, we are talking about small marginal farmers. Typically, the age would be 18 to 40 because they have a smaller land holding. Now, smaller land holding in India has again been a very persistent agriculture problem. This might be a very interesting question to why so many people are now becoming circular migrants, or why are they the immigrants into the cities? Why many people are doing a mass exodus? They are moving out of the rural India into the urban India. Why? When we have these many agriculture schemes that the government is introducing, a very good response here again could be the small size of land holdings, which has today made agriculture very unsustainable for Indian population. Now, as a matter of awareness for GS paper 2 social justice, GS paper 3 science, and of course GS paper 1-2, when we touch upon Indian society and social inequality, you should know that land fragmentation, the decreasing size of land holdings per capita, is a very big theme. It's a big reason why so many people migrate to the urban cities. They do that because today agriculture is no longer sustainable, and the root of the problem actually goes back to the land reform that the Indian government had introduced back in the 1950s. Okay, so this touches upon the concepts of land fragmentation, land ceiling, the problem with inheritance of land in the joint family system of Indian rural segment. So please cover those themes too, because these are very overlapping and quite important. So today it is becoming a major problem. As per farmer, per capita, land holding is becoming smaller and more fragmented. We see that the cultivable land up to 2 hectares. This is something that most farmers who are coming under the marginal and small farming category are owning up. That's all they have. So therefore, as per the land records of the concerned states and union territories, those who have cultivable land up to 2 hectares are typically the ones who will be covered as beneficiaries under the scheme. And what are the key features of the scheme? That's a very important question. The most important is assured pension. Now you know that farming is not a very sustainable livelihood given the climate dependence, given land fragmentation, given soil salinity in India today, given lots of water toxicity of the underground water today, poor rainfall patterns today. We see that farmers' income has been declining in most of the states barring 2 or 3. So therefore, this scheme comes up with an assured pension for farmers that after a certain age, say once they are 60 years, they are getting assured rupees 3,000 from the government. So that really provides financial security there. And then we talk about family pension too, which means that in case the farmer dies, in that emergency, the spouse of the farmer will be eligible for 50% of this pension amount. So which means this becomes the family pension, although only applicable in the case of spouse, but it also takes care of the family's financial security. Then we talk about voluntary contributions, a wonderful democratizing concept now. So you might also be noticing that in the last 2-3 years, whichever government schemes are coming for the vulnerable, they have a very big component of volunteering that wasn't there earlier. So even when we talk about the Poshan Abhiyan, when we talk about the free meal schemes for students in the government schools, there is a very big component of volunteering, that all the people who really want to be the beneficiaries of these children who are coming from marginalized backgrounds can actually cook healthy meals and distribute it among children, or they can teach children the value of nutritious food. Something similar is resonating here. Now people who are ready can contribute around rupees 55 to as humble as rupees 55 to 200 per month, depending upon their age, until they are 30. So farmers can also contribute that much money. So again, that's very democratizing, right? When you open up a fund for many more people to participate in. Then we talk about provisions for disability. Now in case a farmer becomes disabled, there is an incapacitation happening before the age of 60, the spouse shall be able to continue the scheme after the death of the farmer too. So that's again a very, very welcome intervention. Now we talk about that until 6th August 2024, we see a situation where about 23.38 lakh farmers have already joined the scheme. So you look at the participation. The participation rate of the scheme is again very overwhelming. So which clearly shows that sometimes schemes which bring about a change in rural life will see a much higher participation. Again, this brings me back to the debate about why in the recent few years we are seeing a lower participation when you talk about the Manrega scheme and when you talk about the school nutrition, the free meal scheme in government schools. Why do we see lower participation? Of course, that has to do with something lagging in the implementation of the scheme. Either these schemes aren't being implemented as much as they are being touted on paper, or the fact that they are not giving the beneficiaries adequate results. So in this case, the scheme that we just saw is bringing about a palpable change because we can see farmers benefiting from it. Okay, so the real part is implementation more than the legislation of the scheme itself. Now with that, let's see another very interesting mission, and this is the digital agriculture mission. Now given the fact that today entire world is reeling over enthusiasm relating to AI and everything that's going automated, anything digital of course acquires a very special relevance for the UPSC exam too. And here the scheme at hand talks about how the Union Cabinet has approved a massive financial grant of 2,817 crore rupees for the digital agriculture mission. So the name itself suggests that yeah, we are digitizing our agriculture sector, but how? So here in the scheme, this scheme is being rolled out as an umbrella. Umbrella scheme means a very wide scheme with a massive coverage. It's coming in the form of digital public infrastructure, which means now we will use advanced, nuanced technology to bring a change in the lives of poor farmers. And how are we planning to do that really? This resonates with union budget announcements for 24-25. 23-24, both the years. They say that let's implement the digitization of agriculture in a big way. Again, the implementation ministry is the same because all agriculture missions typically, not all of them, typically all of them are implemented through the Ministry of Agriculture Farmers Welfare. That's the nodal agency here. And now the key component, the most important part of the mission happens to be the Krishi Decision Support System. As the name suggests, in English this means agriculture decision making system. Okay, so here let's quickly discuss the key pillars of the mission. Which are the key components? Say suppose you are writing a mains answer, or say suppose you are getting options in your prelims exam, that which of these are a critical component of the digital agriculture mission. So there we should be quite sure about the key components. Now let's quickly see what are these. Talking about the key missions, the most important thing is Kisan ki Pehchan. Now in English it means identifying the farmer. And how does that happen? It happens when we are creating a farmer-focused digital system in such a way that for farmers, these schemes are very easily accessible. So let's understand that there is a problem of digital divide today that paralyzes the rural Indian population in a very big way. So very often when we talk about digitization and the use of AI to improve agriculture, healthcare and education, a very sad misfortune here happens to be the fact that even today in rural India, there are problems of connectivity, data speed, awareness regarding digital services. So while the schemes might be there online, a lot of beneficiaries may not be knowing about them. To combat that kind of digital illiteracy or incapacity, here comes a scheme where the farmers will be issued farmer IDs. These are managed by the state governments or the respective union territories in such a way that you are giving a digital recognition or identity to your farmer, quite like we have the Aadhaar cards. Similarly, once the IDs are given, you will link these farmer unique identity cards with farmers' data, such as how much land does the farmer own, such as where does the farmer live, exactly in which community, which cluster. All information regarding the demography, the population of that area, the family details of the farmer. Now these help in creating a database because now we know who the beneficiaries are. There's no more the problem of beneficiary leakage. And this is a very good word actually. You should use it in your answer writing. Whenever you talk about welfare schemes, now for UPSC, welfare schemes are quite important. You like them or you don't, but you have to cover most of them. And yes, I'm talking about GS paper 2 particularly. Social justice, you will have to do lots of schemes. Not only for the vulnerable segments, old age schemes, you talk about the health-based schemes, you talk about agriculture, talk about women of course, children, talk about disabled population, you talk about the transgendered, of course you talk about urbanization schemes. All these come in the picture. A very good word that I can teach you here is known as beneficiary leakage. Now what do we mean by this word? Leakage means there is a kind of gap, there is a problem here. So while so many schemes are being implemented, so many schemes are being rolled out by the government, massive finance is being given to them, but do you ever realize that many of these do not reach the beneficiaries? What happens to these schemes? Why are they just like racing horses on paper? Why don't they actually make a difference on the ground? So this is the problem of beneficiary leakage. Sometimes there are the schemes in place, but exactly who is the person in need? That the government doesn't understand, the government doesn't know. There is an obscurity of data. We do not really know who the real beneficiaries are. And therefore, the outlay of the scheme does not even go as envisaged. It doesn't help these people because we do not know who are these people. So a system which talks about Kisan Ki Pehchan, which gives identity to a farmer, linking the farmer's ID with a fixed online database that is accessible to the government and to the farmer, that could mean wonders. Because now we are targeting the beneficiaries and also reaching out to them. And in case we miss the beneficiary itself, the person himself or herself can come and online discuss about it, reach out to it. So that's the beauty of this whole mission, by the way. It's improving the universal access of these schemes. So therefore, we also talk about crop zone registry. We say that this database will also talk about how many crops and which kind of crops are the farmers growing per agri season, and this also we can do through an online survey known as digital crop survey. Now we know that in India the problem of seasonal unemployment in farmers is tremendous. Why? Because agriculture is a seasonal business. In India typically we have the Rabi season, Kharif season, the Zaid season. Apart from that, what happens in the lean season? No wonder today we see situations where rice, essentially a Kharif crop, is being grown in the Rabi season also. There is a whole big debate about then what is barley, what is bajra, why are they being grown multi-seasons now? So that's what humans have to do when there is a problem of seasonal element of agriculture. That certain crops only prosper in a certain season of the year. What happens to the cultivators? In the remaining seasons, they become unemployed. There is no fixed source of income. So to combat that problem, it's better you have a proper database of that, because then you know the exact amount of crop failures that are happening so that you can help the beneficiaries, right? So the very interesting thing here is digital crop survey. Now, I'd strongly recommend that for this scheme, please become very hands-on on this, because this seems to me a very, very relevant question in the upcoming exam, and I'm talking about pre as well as mains. Now, many times even in the interviews nowadays, the panel would just ask you questions about, suggest some innovative measures. Nowadays we talk about, okay, there is AI, we know, there is artificial intelligence, we have the digitization ability. But then what about innovation? It's actually us who can think of innovative ways of making use of these technologies, and that's where the scheme comes in. It's a very ambitious and a very futuristic scheme. You see the broad domain of the scheme, it talks about everything, giving a proper database to everything. So please learn the scheme by heart, because this will give you volumes to write on. whenever you talk about agriculture problem or whenever you talk about helping the farmers really. Now another important thing to remember is the DSS here. Here we talk about the Kisan Decision Support System. Help the farmer in taking a decision, and how would you do that? Integrate remote sensing data on crop, soil, weather, water resources into a unified geospatial system. What do we mean when we say that? When we say that, we are saying that use the satellite imagery, use the remote sensing data, because today we have that ability. Use that and then get all the information you can on the soil type, soil problems, soil fertility, soil alkalinity, the groundwater level, water available for irrigation. Talk about the weather. Talk about the condition of the entire soil profile in the area where the farming is taking place. Through this, you can do a detailed mapping. You can do a detailed monitoring of various soil profiles, because now you know that what is the nature of the soil. How much inputs does the soil need? Or should we give a break? Should we leave that place fallow for some years? Now, if you've studied modern history enough, it's very good to remember. See, I always like teaching this way. You must integrate your geography and history. That gives you the best solution of learning and remembering. So back in the Mughal period, if you remember, during the Todar Mal's system of farming and just measuring the soil profile, it was a very elaborate system, quite important to remember for the exams also. So they used to leave an agriculture land empty, uncultivated or fallow for many years or months altogether, depending on the health of the soil, because it's believed that if you leave a soil temporarily without cultivating it constantly, the soil is able to regenerate its fertility. On the other hand, if you keep on cultivating crops on that soil season after season after season, eventually the soil fertility goes haywire. It is not as fertile as it should be. So that's exactly what we are talking about here. So data like soil profile mapping, the ability to understand the exact nature of soil profile, gives you that decision making ability that whether you need to leave a soil fallow for some period of time, or is it subject to more cultivation safely. So this is exactly what we are talking about, and the accuracy is that we could cover 142 million hectares of agriculture land in the process and do its profiling. Similarly, we talk about Digital General Crop Estimation Survey, the DGCES. Here we say that yield estimates through scientifically designed crop cutting experiments. You could take up hybridization of crop experiments to see whether crops could be remodeled, crops could be redesigned or grafted from one area to another to promote better cultivation. So all these are possible, and you can enable the farmer to make a better decision if you have so much data at hand, and that's the beauty of the mission again. Now let's quickly talk about the key targets of the mission. Well, the clear-cut target is that digital identities should be created for 11 crore farmers. That's in the financial year 24-25, 3 crores financial year 25-26, 2 crores financial year 26-27. Similarly, we could also say that the digital crop survey will be implemented within the next year, next 2 years across the country, where you are covering more than 400 districts and typically try to cover all the districts, say by 25-26. There are some other associated initiatives under this, say for example, All India Ecosystem of Agriculture Framework. Here you would understand that creating a centralized database would help you innovate better solutions for farmers. You talk about market-based intervention, creating better access for the farmers to the market. Many times because of intermediaries, because of middlemen, the farmers aren't reaching the market and the consumers directly. We do have farmer markets, we do have the hearts and the mandis for farmers, but many times the transactions are actually usurped, taken advantage of by the middlemen and the intermediaries, because farmers do not have right knowledge about market access and commercialization of crops. So that's where this database and helping them to have a market access would really make a difference. Then we talk about drones for land mapping, quite important. The drone technology being used in agriculture could not only help you in spraying medicines, but also it could help you in mapping very properly that if you want to implement sensor-based smart agriculture, then drone-based mapping is the most efficient and cost-effective manner. Then of course we talk about national strategy on AI. So here we are talking about a joint initiative by the Niti Aayog, where now we can use AI-driven solution for various agriculture-related problems too. Of course, we talk about the Kisan mobile app, the Suvidha app. the HortiNet app, which means the farmers with smartphones can also have it on their phones, and for any kind of help they can actually contact the authorities. They can get exact information on the inputs that they need in sharing or collecting help regarding any new farming practice. So all of that becomes possible through this mission here. And then of course there are many other initiatives to promote this kind of digitization in agriculture. One is the IDEA framework, as we just said, create innovative solutions. So something that we've just covered. Okay, now with this we can proceed with the next important news context, and this talks about the Namo Drone Didi or the Namo Drone Didi. What is this new scheme that we are talking about? So when we say Didi, we of course know we are referring to the female participation of agriculture. So let's see that the scheme has approved by the government. It has been approved that there shall be drones which will be provided to women self-help groups. Now, we often talk about civil society groups in India. You would wonder exactly in which paper. So this is GS paper 1, 2 and 3, all of them. So we often talk about self-help groups as being one of the most predominant form of civil society groups in India, which means groups which do not have government involvement, but here they work on the principle of self-empowerment. And talking about a self-help group, even before we discuss the scheme at hand, self-help group is a very small informal group of women, very predominant in India rural side. Of course nowadays we are also having the urban self-help groups, but here typically young women from the age of say 18 to 30 or even 40, they would gather groups of 10 to 20 members. The purpose is self-empowerment. And how does that self-empowerment comes? All these women pool their funds. Now all of them are women coming from financially deprived backgrounds. So they collect their money, jewelry, whatever they have, and they make a joint pool. Once the pool is ready, they invest for inputs for starting a new business, and then slowly they help each other in scaling up the business. The business could be anything from cosmetic to cooking to any kind of vendoring to any kind of marine marine product processing activity. A very good example is SEVA, the Self-Employed Women Association, that was initiated back in 1972 owing to the efforts of Miss Ila Bhatt, one of the most predominant self-help groups in India. Today it's a movement in itself. Okay, so these are groups where small number of women come together, pool their resources, they have regular meetings. Of course it's an informal structure, but it has certain principles. Often the principles are known as the Panch Sutra or the 5 principles of self-help group: regular meetings, fixed pool investment, regular interloaning. They keep giving each other loans, but on the condition that the loans have to be repaid. Regular meeting and all records to be done on paper, and then together they initiate a business. Now you might wonder what can happen with such a small amount of money. Well, wonders happen with this money, because initially it begins as a very small business, but once it scales up or once it is sustainable, it is able to attract microfinance. Now remember, in India the problem of institutional credit is very high, which means getting loans and money from banks and other non-banking formal agencies. In India, that's not common. Why? Because for rural poor, it's not easy to get loans for starting a business. While they may have innovation, they may have ideas, but they do not get capital. One reason is they do not have a collateral security, so nobody gives them a loan. Second problem is talking about women. It's even more difficult because women in Indian rural segment today, also owing to patriarchal inheritance norms, they do not really have much land or assets in their name. Another problem is poor credit absorption capacity. In India, it is believed that the rural population, they are not given loans by the banks because people believe that they will always default. They will never repay those loans because the credit absorption is very poor here. Owing to all that, poor women do not get loans. So how will they finance for a business idea? Well, then self-help groups becomes a wonderful idea then. And once the business is successful, big corporations, government agencies are able to give them then some kind of a loan or financial assistance. This becomes the concept of microfinancing. Very important concept for UPSC. Many times you get direct questions on microfinance in GS paper 2 and 3. So this itself is microfinance, where small initiatives like self-help groups are able to draw loans and financial grants from big corporates or big government agencies. So that's the beauty of self-help groups. So very empowering initiative. Today it's changing the lives of many women, especially across the states of Maharashtra, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu and Northeast India, including of course the hilly states of Sikkim, Uttarakhand, where women are very empowered today. Basket making, coir making, jewelry making, handicraft, soap making, you name it. Many informal activities are being done here. Okay, now having said that, I'll leave you with a very interesting question. Now there was a Nobel Prize laureate not in India, he was from Bangladesh actually, and he was the man who was responsible for initiating the concept of self-help group in the first place. Much later then it came to India, and of course it was propagated in a major way by Miss Ila Bhatt. Do you know whom I'm talking about? Do you know whom I'm talking about? The Nobel Prize laureate who gave us the concept of self-help group. If you do, please post your comment in the comment section, and I'd love to hear from you, and I promise you I will get back to you. That's a promise I'm making. I will definitely reach back to you, but then you have to answer the question. Who is the person? Let me know. Okay, so if this is the self-help group, then under this mission of Namo Drone Didi, the government is giving drones to these self-help groups. Wow, what an empowering initiative. And this is coming under the broader mission of National NRLM, and it's a massively budgeted mission. It has a budget of around 1261 crore rupees. Now let's quickly understand the scheme. Under the scheme, which was launched back in 2023, the aim is to empower rural women, especially the farming women, to be able to use drones in their agriculture successfully for mechanizing and modernizing their farming practices. Another thing is that the budget allows for an 80% subsidy on the cost of the drone, which means that at a very affordable price, these drones would be allocated to these women. We are planning to cover 15,000 women-led self-help groups, and potentially you could generate an income of 1 lakh per annum per SHG. And just now we were saying that self-help groups do not have money, so this is where the money comes from. This is very innovative. Ultimately the objective is to modernize Indian agriculture. Now let me tell you something very interesting, but don't blame me. Don't say that ma'am always talks about the problems of women in agriculture. No, I know I do talk about that, but I'm not being obsessed with it. It's quite a reality and it's a demand of the scheme. That's why I'm sharing with you. So when you talk about mechanization of agriculture, we know that since 2011, the government has been doing a lot of activities to mechanize Indian agriculture. There are seed drillers, there are mechanical harvesters, there are nuanced tractors, there are irrigation mechanized facilities. All that is happening now. Okay, so what does that mean? When there is too much mechanization, too much use of machinery in agriculture, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Yes? Post it in the comment, respond, otherwise how will I know whether you're enjoying the lecture or not? Is that a good thing or a bad thing? It's both. Why? Because when you say we are modernizing, mechanizing agriculture, the good thing is that yes, there is better output. Yes, there is saving human labor there. Yes, it is time efficient. Yes, it's very hygienic. Of course, it improves the time. Of course, it improves the output. But there is a problem also. Now, we know that in India, 80% and more of our rural population is eventually depending on agriculture. Not all these are the rich farmers. Most of them are the agriculture laborers, especially women. No wonder we talk about feminization of agriculture. It's a very common theme in UPSC, come on. Feminization of agriculture means that while men in the rural areas, they migrate to the urban cities for a better job. Because of the urban pull factors, it is the women and the children who are left behind in the villages to take care of cropping and agriculture labor as a supplementary income. Now, if these women are doing agriculture labor, what labor are they doing? Typically, they take care of small, very tiny, tedious jobs such as putting the seed, harvesting, cutting, or doing some kind of, digging and some kind of turnover of the soil consistently, putting medication and all of that. But if the machines will take over all these jobs like drillers, harvesters, which are all automatic, what work will these women do? Don't you think it's a latent impact of mechanization of agriculture? That today we are experiencing a feminization of poverty also? Yes. So that's very important to remember, that in case agriculture becomes completely mechanized, which also we are envisaging in the near future for better efficiency, there is a problem that the agriculture labor will face massive shortage of jobs, especially this is women segment that we are talking about. Okay, so therefore the Drone Didi is very interesting, because here you are empowering women directly through automation and machinery. Again, another very interesting finding of one of the surveys done in India was that although mechanization of agriculture is being adopted by the farmers now, but women farmers are not able to be that comfortable in usage of this machinery, because there is lack of adequate training also and hands holding by the government there. So initiatives like this, where you are directly making in charge of a machine, of something as innovative as a drone, could definitely mean a lot for women who could, if not in farming, if not in labor, then definitely they could participate in the self-help group if it becomes a profitable business. So all these themes are important. You should keep remembering and discussing these themes among your friends, so that more ideas you get for answer writing eventually. So then one objective is clearly to modernize agriculture through technology, better output, better efficiency, better time. Second thing is that the drones are affordable. You are also leading to a kind of technological intervention and technological capacity building among women. That's wonderful. You are making them innovative. Tomorrow they can start better businesses, more businesses. That's again beautiful. Third thing is you are creating sustainable income streams. Indeed, for those women who are working in small self-help groups, with better income they can tomorrow scale up the business and their income capacity, women empowerment shoots up. Another issue is that you are also giving women with drone piloting and drone maintenance. When they can maintain a drone, they can definitely take care of all agriculture machinery, and hence you are empowering women farmers to take up agriculture on a full scale basis. So that's beautiful. What are the key components of the mission Drone Didi? One is financial assistance, 80% subsidy, 80% cost help, financing help to women, very low interest loan. Now when you give somebody a loan with low interest and easy repayment time, these are known as soft loans. Now I love to integrate themes when I teach, because I think students remember better. So this takes me to something else now. Suddenly I'm talking about the IMF and the World Bank. We all know about the structural adjustment program. If we do not know, we should know, by the way. If you want to know more about this structural adjustment program, how did it change the future of Indian economy after 1991? Is it a good thing or a bad thing for developing countries? How has that led to, in India, lots of informal sector work? If you are interested, you have to post in the comment. Otherwise, then how would I know? Then it's okay. Then let it be. I'll avoid the topic. You'll miss out. But if you're genuinely interested in knowing about IMF and World Bank, what's the whole concept of structural adjustment program? What is the whole concept of the fact which we call as, social dumping and all of that? If you want to know, then post it in the comment and definitely I'll come back with that. As of now, let's understand that these agencies also give us soft loans. That's why we take them. Loans which can be repaid easily, lesser interest, that's soft loan. So another component of this scheme also, Drone Didi, is giving drones at a soft loan basis. Then of course you have training programs. You need to have a 15-day rigorous training in how to use a drone. That's very important. Hands holding. Then we talk about cluster-based implementation. We say that these initiatives are coordinated by lead fertilizer companies, and these are partnering with various state governments and the self-help group leaders in order to help people at a very regional level to find hands-down training in this drone usage. Very important scheme. Not only agriculturally, also women empowerment, also mechanization of agriculture. So please be thorough with that. The next scheme on the screen talks about Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana. As the name suggests, yes, we are talking about insurance. So this says we are trying to now approve further extension of the restructured form of weather-based crop insurance scheme until 2026. So what is this scheme and what are the new changes? Restructuring, what does this mean? It means that now the scheme shall be continued until 2025-2026. The outlay is going to be massive, 69,515.71 crore rupees. Then what is this restructuring? One thing is the time of implementation has been extended. Another is that this is now being implemented through the Fund for Innovation and Technology, the FIAT, F-I-A-T. The corpus again is a massive amount of money. This would now help provide more support initiatives such as yield estimation system using technology, the YES tech, please remember. Then of course the weather information and network data system, the WINS, very interesting names, you could remember them with mnemonics, YES tech and WINS. Please remember before we quickly analyze the scheme in more detail. So what are the basic objectives of the scheme? What is the scheme all about? Now remember, it's an insurance scheme. And what does an insurance scheme do? What's the meaning of insurance? It means you are assuring somebody that if there is an emergency or there is a disaster, you will help them. There is a fallback option available to them. Now that is only insurance. So under the scheme launched initially in 2016, ministry is the same, so I will not repeat it. That's the nodal agency, Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare. Again, centrally sponsored scheme. The main agenda is to provide crop insurance to protect farmers in the face of problems like natural calamities, natural disasters. Just please try to remember back in 2022-2023, in the area of Pakistan, in the regions of Pakistani areas of Sindh, Baluchistan. Please remember there was a massive locust attack. Remember? How dangerous was that? That farmers could see storms of locust coming in from somewhere and there's nothing they could do much about it. Because in such cases, the farmers definitely stand to lose. Then suddenly you might have noticed how in India today we talk about this Kasturi cotton. It's an excellent uber variety of cotton that comes from India. It has a huge market abroad also. Very good quality cotton from India. Excellent grade. So in such situations also where your country is kind of exporting a brilliant material, what if there is a sudden outbreak of the disease called the bollworm disease or the pink bollworm disease in cotton, or there is a rust disease in your wheat, or there is some kind of a bacterial virus fungal infection that happens in your rice? What will you do? So for a farmer, it's a very challenging problem. The brown rusting of wheat, the cracking of rice, all these are difficult situations because after months of harvesting, if you realize that you grow a crop and then you depend for it to mature and suddenly something takes a toll, what if there is a flooding? Climate change, we all know. All we can do today is to become resilient. It's very futile to tell somebody that please stop climate change. No, I don't think it's a little too late for that. So only two things we can do. We can stop further deterioration, and another thing is we can adapt. We can't say that please undo the damage. That's not possible. So therefore, insurance becomes a very important concept in today's world, especially when talk about agriculture and preventive health. Very important. So therefore, farmers, in case of any such problem like no monsoon, like last year, so many farmers were suffering because of that El Nino effect. Geography, right? Similarly, pest, disease, infection, or complete heavy flooding that happens, extreme heat wave can come, a pandemic can come on. So in those cases, the government will try to provide crop insurance to the farmers, and therefore absolutely it is coming under the umbrella of One Nation, One Scheme theme that replaces the older one known as National Agriculture Insurance Scheme. And this today is the modified one, okay? And some very clear-cut objectives, you understand now, I know. They are about giving financial support to farmers in case there is a crop failure, natural calamities or any disease or something. Second thing is to stabilize farmers' income. Okay, so that even if there is a damage, the poor farmer can continue his cultivation activity. Then please adopt modern agriculture practices. Now the word modern is a very misunderstood word. Many people, whenever you tell them that we are talking about modernization of agriculture, they say, oh, which means it's about machinery. Modernization and mechanization are two different things. They are close, but they are not the same. So when we say mechanizing agriculture, we are saying use machines in agriculture. Like one example was Drone Didi, of course, drones. When I say modernizing agriculture, it's not the same as mechanization always. When I say modernize, yes, one thing is you mechanize, you put machines. Another thing is you create a climate resilient agriculture too. You sometimes going back to traditional practices like the bamboo drip system for agriculture, like the crop rotation scheme, like the polycultural theme of India, like going back to millet cultivation or going back to legume cultivation within cereal crops. All these look very age old, but they are also modern today. Why? Because these assure you better results. So modernization means anything you are doing with a difference towards a better output. So it means more sophistication. It always doesn't mean mechanization, and this scheme therefore talks about modernization. I'm not saying mechanization only. Please remember, these are different words. Don't even misuse them or interchange them in your answer writing. I've corrected many copies where children say that, okay, modernization of agriculture, mechanization of agriculture. We use these words very judiciously. Now we talk about better flow of credit to the agriculture. Yes, of course, it's an insurance scheme, so it talks about giving more financial benefit. So what are the key features? If you were to write an answer, talking is very easy, writing is very difficult, right? So we can discuss schemes and you will say, yeah, I know the scheme. Now if I say write a 10-mark question, write a 150-word answer and just talk about the objectives of the scheme, and you will be like, I can just write two. So what will you write if there is a question? Let's see. One important feature is the interest rate. It's a premium interest rate. 2% is being given by the government to the farmers for kharif crops. Kharif crops, rice. 1.5% rabi crops. Rabi crops, wheat. What else is there? Comment. Show me in the comment box. Which other rabi crops do you know? What are crops like mustard? What are crops like sesame? What are crops like maize? Comment, please. And 5% for commercial and horticultural crops, where we talk about fruits and vegetables. Okay, so that's the interest rate that the government is giving. Next thing is the area-based approach. The scheme is following the area approach insurance, which means that there is a defined area that will be identified called as the notified area. Now again, this reminds me of something else. My mind keeps switching between UPSC themes. Even you should have that kind of habit. It really helps you remember a lot in an interesting way also. This reminds me of notified area committees. What are notified area committees? I remember in one of the Hindu DNAs I had spoken about urbanization. I had spoken about the 74th Amendment Act of the Indian Constitution. Which schedule of the Constitution does it deal with? Quickly comment in the comment box. There I had spoken about notified area committee. Why? In what context did we talk about it? So if you follow the sessions, you will know. If you don't, you should. So please comment, okay? So there is this notified area in which this insurance benefit will be implemented at village, block level. We can talk about the village panchayat level, and the farmers will be given help. Those who are under huge risk of, say, crop loss or any kind of financial loss during this emergency. Of course, which crops will be covered? Oh, very important point. This is the star point of this mission. You must write it in the answer. Unless you pinpoint, the scheme looks very general. So you have to pinpoint the particular crops covered in this scheme are cereals, millets and pulses. Now millets, which was the International Year of Millets? Which was the International Year of Millets? Quickly in the comment box, please let me know. Then you have oil seed and annual commercial, annual horticultural crops. Now see how far we have come from the backlash of the Green Revolution. Until 2000, we would never talk about millets. Whenever we talk about an agriculture scheme, we always talk about the Green Revolution crops. No wonder today India is the diabetes capital of the world. We are having a cardiovascular risk that's very high. So all these are health related issues that came with monocropping, right? So see, today we've learnt our lesson, of course, the hard way. And we are talking about millet production, millet cultivation, enhancing millet usage. So this is also something you must remember. Now this also reminds me of something else, So whenever you study GS paper 1 Indian society, constantly you will keep hearing a theme that Indian society is cyclic in nature. Indian society goes in a very circular pattern. It doesn't have a linear growth path. Why? I always tell students, Indian society has a problem. We always go back to our roots. We always go back to where we start. We always go back to our past. See, it's a very good example to see that. When it comes to food and cultivation, again we are going back to millets, something our ancestors used to do. Why are we doing it today? We've learned the lesson the hard way. That not only is depending on rice, wheat only dangerous for our health, it's also very dangerous for our agricultural land. It's dangerous for the soil health also. Because yes, we are depending too much on chemicals, so we are also, it's like a loss both ways, a two-edged sword. Diseases are becoming more burdensome, soil quality is going. So yes, we are back to millets, circular change I was talking about, so please remember, okay? Another thing is, yes, we are saying that the government will bear all the balance and there is no upper cap on the subsidy. Oh, that's wonderful. that subsidy can be of any amount depending on the severity of the emergency. The government isn't saying that there is an upper limit beyond which I am not giving money. No, that's not happening here. It's a very, very benevolent approach really towards farmers. Now we say that there is a use of technology. Smartphones will be used for data collection, remote sensing, of course to reduce crop cutting experiments. In case there is an emergency, the farmers also start getting panicky. I mean, imagine their situation. So then they resort to all kind of experiments, right? They will cut the crop early, or they will just kind of shift the crop in mid maturation period to another piece of land. So all that also backfire on farmers only. So to avoid such panicky experiments, there is a proper database through which the farmers will be given the right guidance only. Eligibility: all farmers who have a notified crop cultivation can actually volunteer for this from the Kharif season of 2020. How does this come as compared to the previous scheme? That is the Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana that we are talking about, and the other scheme, the restructured weather-based crop insurance scheme, the RWBCIS. There are differences because the first one talks about giving insurance to farmers in the case of emergency. The second one talks about giving farmers help due to adverse weather conditions. This is a more weather-based emergency that we are talking about, while the first one talks about any kind of emergency. It's more inclusive. The second one says that this is based on how much loss does a farmer have on his crop. The amount of crop loss equals to the help of insurance that the government will give you. In the second one, we are saying that this is based on weather parameters, weather conditions. If there is too much humidity, flooding, very high rainfall, say for example complete dried weather, accordingly in advance as a preventive measure you will be given some support and help and advice also. Then the first one talks about crop cutting experiment, just to see how much loss the farmer will have. The second one does not do that. It just say that weather is the only criteria here, and we do not encourage any kind of other deviations from this model. We will only speaking about weather related risk and how to prevent them. The first one talks about natural calamities during the post harvest time also, once the crops are cut, after that also. But this one talks about very, very weather oriented risks, just like I told you: heat wave, flood, frost, drought, and during the time when the crops are still growing on the ground. That's important. Another thing is the technology use. The first one is using smartphones, remote sensing. The second one is using weather-based monitoring, because in real time you have to help the farmers. Real time means immediately. That's the benefit of AI technology. The first one, all farmers are eligible who are growing in the Kharif season since 2020. In the second one, actually all farmers, because weather risk is open to all the farmers. Come on. We understand that today climate change is posing a similar risk to all the farmers in Indian rural sector, whether it be Kharif season growers, Rabi growers, Zaid growers, seasonal growers, horticulturalists, or people who are into animal husbandry. I think everyone is facing a risk that's alike, okay? Even marine farming, that's also facing the same kind of risk, marine harvesting. So this is open to everyone, sharecroppers or tenant farmers, landowners, everyone. So it's a more user-centric scheme that way. Now, talking about the risk, now remembering all the risks are not important, but in a very, very smart way. Let me tell you which risks should you include in your answer when you write the answer in your mains. Prelims will not ask you which risks. No, that's unlikely, but definitely mains can. So you should just remember in the longer run. So the risk that we talk about is yield loss. I spoke about the notified area. A certain area will be covered under the scheme. In this area, if because of weather there is a cyclone, heavy rainfall, cloud burst, drought, hurricane, then the farmer will get help. If there is a natural fire. Now please remember, yesterday I was doing a scheme with you, and there was a word called arson. Many students later commented that what is arson, ma'am, really? So arson is a deliberate fire. If somebody deliberately puts fire to something for destroying that, that's called arson. It's not like natural fire. Natural fire is any fire that breaks out because of a natural cause. Nobody has done it deliberately. So then all things like pest and disease will be covered. Second thing to remember is that there are certain preventive helps also that are available. Say for example, if there is a prediction that yes, a very heavy cyclone is going to come, or there is a massive drought that is going to come, the government will provide for 25% of the amount promised in advance, just to help. It's a you can say preventative measure of help that's being given to the farmers. Now, of course, when we talk about which risks are not included here, just 2 or 3 you remember for the exam. One is in case there is a kind of communal violence happening, there is a war-like situation, in case there is say an act of enmity, an arson, somebody puts deliberate fire, then those are not the cases that we are covering under the scheme, because it's only about natural calamities. So that's all you need to remember, that only natural calamities are covered. Deliberate activities, war, violences, enmities are not something that we are going to cover. Anthropogenic things in terms of actual violence is not covered, but natural calamities are something that the scheme focuses upon, and that's enough to remember early. Now with that, we can jump on to the PM-KISAN, oh very popular scheme. The Indian government will shortly re-release, okay, that's a re-edition, relaunch of the 18th version of the Kisan Samman Nidhi, the PM-KISAN in Maharashtra. Now, which is the state in India? Here comes a question. I always keep playing this KBC kind of game with you because I think that helps you remember very well. So my question to you, my dear, is that which state in India has the largest net sown area under cultivation of, say, food crops? Interesting question. Please post your answer in the comment if you find it interesting. Please post your answer in the comment. Let us know and I'll get back to you. Okay, so what is this PM-KISAN Yojana? Please remember, it was initially launched in 2019 and the nodal ministry again is the same, agriculture, farmers, welfare. But what you need to remember from the exam's perspective, now a prelims question can come. Which of these is not an objective of PM-KISAN? The question can ask you which of these is an objective of PM-KISAN. Plus in the mains, anyway you have to remember at least 5. Many students ask me, ma'am, how many points should we remember per scheme? There are so many schemes. I said it's okay. Remember at least 4 each. That's enough. Why do I say 4? It's a smart strategy. If you get a 10 marks question, 4 is enough. If you get a 20 marks question, you can describe all 4. To just enhance the word limit, plus you could give examples there. That's not a difficult target. So if you take the session, I know if you read from a book, it can become a little monotonous. But if you see it in the form of a video lecture like you're seeing right now, I will not agree that you will forget. I always say things that we see and enjoy, we don't forget. So if you are honestly enjoying the lecture, if you try to just enjoy our discussion, then you will always remember. So 4 points per scheme is what I really recommend. Now with this PM-KISAN, what to do? Which are the most important objectives? 1, it provides income support to all farmers who have land owning farmers in the country. Best thing is, size of the land doesn't matter. Just few minutes before we spoke about land fragmentation. Today in India, land is completely fragmented. Very few. Most farmers do not own much hectares of land, as low as 2 hectares. In that case, what to do? So therefore, size is not a problem. No matter how much land you own, you will be provided help under PM-KISAN. Another thing to remember is that to supplement your monetary needs, to supplement your financial needs, many kind of agriculture inputs. It could be seeds, it could be machines, it could be pesticides, it could be fertilizers, it could be other chemicals, it could be small kind of things like, irrigation equipments. All that shall be given to you. Even sometimes for your domestic needs, just as a part of financial assistance broadly. Then this is a central government scheme. Who is eligible? All farmers who own some land, who have some cultivable land holding as per the records of the government in the respective states and UTs. So definitely here it is only for those who are land owners. We are not talking about the agriculture labor segment here. Please understand. It's very important. Normally, whenever we talk about agriculture welfare schemes, many students blindly presume that we are talking about the informal labor in agriculture. We were talking about the informal labor, feminization of poverty. No, that segment is not included here. We are talking about farmers who own some land. These are the land-owning farmers we are talking about. Of course, in India, it is a very complex thing to understand because you have caste differentials. Of course, you have this whole big criteria of in different states, different castes are more land owning, and all of those complexities exist. But as of now, don't go there. Just remember that land owning farmers will be given benefit here. Those who have a written ownership of the record is listed with the states or the respective UT. Now, what is the definition of family for this scheme? If they say that a family will be given help, entire family of the land owning farmer, it would include the primary kins. When we say wife and children, we mean primary kins. Primary kins are your immediate relatives in your family. Okay, these are the ones who are included in the family for this definition, and except for northeastern states, the seven sister states, and of course except for Jharkhand, all these other states in India would be eligible for this kind of scheme implementation. Now let's quickly also understand who is included therefore. You have institutional land farmers, landowners. You know who are landowners, who are institutional? As I just said, those whose land records are existing with the respective state and union territory. So whose land ownership is recorded. There has to be a proof of your land owning. Second thing is former and present holders of constitutional posts. Okay, all these people are eligible, fine. Former and present ministers. We talk about the ministers of parliament, ministers of legislative assembly, all MLCs, mayor, chairpersons of district panchayats, all these come under the eligibility. They are the people who will actually not get any benefit under this scheme. Why? Why will these people not get any benefit? That's a bigger question. Because a welfare scheme is typically targeted towards those who need some assistance, who have some vulnerability. They are under some kind of a financial problem, or they may be in the coming future. So when we talk about people who have registered land records, but those who are owning massive pieces of land, those who own acres of land altogether, either through hereditary or through a joint family culture that's behind that, or people who are holding very important government posts, who have a fixed source of income, why will they be eligible for a post, for a scheme that is meant for vulnerable people? So who are included? All the land owning farmers. Who are excluded? All these set of people who are already entitled, so they will not be given. Similarly, present or retired employees of state, central government, public sector units, no. Similarly, all people who have paid income tax in the last assessment year, pensioners but who have a pension of over rupees 10,000 monthly. Similarly, professionals like doctors, engineers, lawyers, CAs and architects, NRIs, non-resident Indians. Similarly, 6,000 per year directly will be given to the bank account of the beneficiaries, that is 2,000 rupees per quarter every 4 months. But who is not included? All these people. So let me be very clear about it, that beneficiaries are those who are landowners, yes, but these are not included. They are also landowning people, but they are not included because they are already entitled population. Why would we give it to people who have a fixed source of income? No, they are not vulnerable. So please, these will not be included. Having said that, what are the key features of PM-KISAN? Very important question. Yes, question can come from here, prelims, mains, both. Most important, responsibility of identity beneficiary farmers rests with the states and the UTs. Now, often we know that given the very quasi-federalistic structure of our Indian polity, many times there is a confusion regarding who is the implementing agency of a particular scheme. Because in many schemes you will realize that central government is funding the entire scheme, and therefore the duty of identifying the beneficiaries is also with the central government in some schemes. But in many other schemes, who will identify that which people, which segment of people are the beneficiaries, who should be targeted? That's the state government or the respective union territory that does it. In the scheme also, the beneficiaries will be identified not by the central government, by the respective state and union territories. Similar doubt comes when students talk about the OBC castes and the ST castes. Many people keep asking me when I teach social justice that, ma'am, who identifies really? They say that the OBC list is a centrally created list. But the central government also has the entitlement of reducing number of castes in it, adding number of castes in it. It's a very flexible list. Okay. So in that case, who identifies and who has the responsibility of removing people from OBC list, the non-creamy layer, and who can further add people to it? Similar goes with scheduled tribe also. And another doubt many students suffer from is that why is the criteria different from one state to another? In some states, one caste is called OBC. In the neighboring state, that is not OBC, that is ST, or that is coming under SC, or that is a general category. So what to do? So these are certain fundamental problems, but if you wish to know more about those problems, here this is not the space for it. But definitely if you want clarity on these issues, identification criteria, who decides, why is it a variable scheme, who can add and delete, then what difference came after the backward caste commission was made a constitutional body back in 2021. How have things changed since then? What were those changes? Why do we talk about that particular amendment? All that I can bring to you, but I have to know from you. If you comment and say that, yeah, we need a clarity on that, definitely we'll come back with that. Okay, so it completely depends on you, that if you want to know more or not. As of now, please understand, just like those castes, Here also, identity of the beneficiaries will be identified by the state or the respective union territory. Having said that, please understand that the funds are not allocated and sanctioned state by state, state-wise, because here the clear-cut criteria is that there is no distinction between urban and rural cultivable land. Land situated in urban areas is under actual cultivation. It is only on the basis of the land that you hold, the amount of land that you hold, that the assistance or the money shall be provided to you. It is not allocated in a fixed matter by state or UTs. Just because there is beneficiary in the state, the money will be given. No, it completely depends on the amount of land holding. Some Aadhaar based electronic know your customer regulation is important. Registration is important with the government online portal. Second thing is tenant farmers are not eligible. That we already understand. That the scheme is only meant for people who own land, farmers who own land. So those who are working on other people's land, the tenant farming, they are not eligible. Similarly, micro land holdings which are cultivable are excluded. Land holdings which are very micro in size, they are also excluded, but the criteria again will differ from state to state. So that's a technical aspect of the scheme. Now also let's understand that if these are certain technical criteria, then how is the scheme actually implemented? What about the implementation part of the scheme? How is the implementation done? The first thing to understand is PM-KISAN mobile app. Under this, first mobile app in the country actually is being rolled out, which uses face authentication. The face identification will be used to take benefit of this scheme. Okay. Electronic KYC will be done at home without the need of any further complexity like OTPs or fingerprints that could sometimes mislead the farmers. It also leads to cyber crimes, by the way, too much OTP use culture. So that's why it's a face identity scheme, very, very helpful for the farmers, combats the problem of digital abuse. And then of course, it can also assist 100 other farmers. Farmers can also assist many other farmers, okay, on a diffusional benefit basis in the neighborhood who need help like seed lending or seed sharing based on whether they have an Aadhaar card linked with a bank account or something. Then of course we are talking about the AI chatbot. Of course there is AI application, artificial intelligence automation, Kisan e-Mitra. So whenever you write an answer on the scheme or whenever you get a prelims question, either it will be on who will get the benefit, who will not get the benefit. Definitely it will be about some important features like the Kisan mobile app, and the second important one could be the AI chatbot or the Kisan e-Mitra. The first chatbot, now this is very important to remember, it's revolutionary. First chatbot that is integrated with a major flagship scheme of the union government. It has been developed by Ek Step Foundation and Bhashini. Bhashini you already must have heard about, the app which talks about providing people help and data in their own local language. So it's a multilingual app. Given the polylinguistic culture of Indian society, we are trying to create. Of course, day before yesterday in one of the Hindu DNAs, I had also spoken about how the government is saying now more AI language models will be created so that in the local vernacular languages people can use AIs now. You can get answers in your language, you can give you can say suggestions or command in your own language. That will really help people who have an English problem really, or who have a problem of knowing mainstream languages. So something similar is here. Farmers come from different states, different linguistic backgrounds. That's being taken care of because one of the developers of this app is the Bhashini, which already is into multilingual database creation. Now we'll also help farmers in finding out details regarding what's the status of their application, payment details, whether they are eligible or ineligible. Of course, we talk about all other details, all the nuances of the scheme shall be given to them. That's very important to remember. And with that, we can now talk about another scheme. And this is a very common scheme. It was all over the newspaper. I think you already know about it. We are talking about the Swamitva scheme. It says 92% of land parcel mapping has been completed under the Swamitva scheme, targeting a full coverage of 3.44 lakh villages by 2026. What is Swamitva scheme? So famous for the exam. I am actually suspecting that it will come in the prelims itself. Very common scheme. Because Swamitva stands for Survey of Villages and Mapping with Improvised Technology in the Village Areas. So what is the scheme all about? The aim is to create the purpose, the intention, the target is to create clear ownership of property in rural inhabited areas, inhabited where people live. which are habitated by people. That's why it's called Abadi. Abadi means the population of a certain area in Hindi. So therefore it aims to have clear ownership of property rights in rural areas, because now because of drone technology we are able to monitor and map that which area is being owned by which farmer or which farmer family, and similarly database will be updated so that there is no fight, there is no confusion, so that there is proper land ownership details, and only then welfare schemes can be implemented successfully. Okay, and also there is no snatching away of the land from vulnerable and the poor. So this will provide a record of rights to the village household owners, because once they have the legal ownership, they will have property cards, they will have title deeds tomorrow if they want to sell it, tomorrow if they want to cultivate it with better inputs, or tomorrow, say for example, there is a fight or they want to implement a government sponsored scheme. These land rights are important, otherwise government will not be able to give them any pension, any subsidy or any other kind of help, because all the interventions that today the government is doing are based on online portals only. So if there is no record of your land owning, if there is a problem with your property ownership identity, then you will never be a beneficiary. Okay, and again there will beneficiary leakage will happen. So to prevent that, implementing agency, Ministry of Panchayati Raj, quite important to remember, in collaboration with the Revenue Department of the State Panchayati Raj Department, and the most important, Survey of India. Very important. Okay, so that proper mapping can be done. That's what the Survey of India does. Now what's the need? Why do we need Swamitva? The biggest problem is, as I have already explained to you in one of the slides in last few minutes, that in India we have a huge problem of land fragmentation. When the government had introduced the land reforms, because the British had completely ruined India's agriculture, not only in terms of output but also it had created massive parceling of lands. Okay, the British government had the zamindari system, mahalwadi system, rayyatwadi system. All that had taken rural property ownership for a toss. It was completely strived on the basis of caste, gender divide, tribe, non-tribe. It was messed up completely. So therefore, once the government initiated in the post-independence era the land reform, which had many intentions. Land ceiling was one intention. Another intention was abolishing of zamindari and all other intermediaries, transferring the land to the real farmers, to the real cultivators. Another very important one was therefore also to make sure that there is consolidation of land holdings. All those you should know for the exam. Now having said that, the government, when the government tried to, in the post-independent time, when the government was trying to create these reforms, it was trying to collect data about agricultural land, but the government did not get any data because the data was completely faulty. It was due to the land reform system, many people were cheating the government. They were trying to fraud the government by transferring the land in somebody else's name, by taking, even it was very interesting, in certain states the concept of fake divorces also increased, all in the name of land ceiling and abolishing of zamindari. The people would transfer the land to their wives, take a divorce, later it was a fake divorce and they would cohabit once again. So many kind of fake documentation was done and the government was confused. So therefore today we are saying that since many village communities were not recorded properly, today we need Swamitva, because all the problems that had happened during that time should not happen today, because come on, we are living in a different age now. We need mechanization, we need modernization, the use of AI, but for that proper recording is important. So therefore once you have legal document in your ownership, it's very easy to take loan from banks. Just now I was mentioning that for rural farmers, one of the biggest problem is the lack of institutional credit. Why? Because they have no collateral security to show the bank. The bank will not give you the loan. They will say you don't even have a property ownership document. Why should I give you loan? To buy a tractor or to grow a crop. But tomorrow if under the Swamitva it is successful and you have the legal ownership of land, then easily you will claim that loan. So that's the benefit. It will enable you to get better institutional credit also. The next is that Swamitva will introduce record of property, and these then will also be backed by all the amendments under the State Land Revenue Code Acts. The government will make sure that they are properly registered, and in that case all the unrecorded land which could lead tomorrow to snatching of property or any kind of smuggling of property also comes down. So clear cut, the objective was to create accurate land record and to enable better planning, better implementation of welfare and loans. Second was to bring financial stability to the citizens. Property is a financial asset. We should know who has what amount of property in the rural area. Third thing is, it will also help in determining the right property tax, isn't it? Unless you have the right record of property, you can never determine the property tax. So that will be taken care of. Now today, if you have a proper property tax, you absolutely can identify the government's income, the amount of taxation to be fixed. Similarly, the survey created will also enable tomorrow for the government to take better decisions about cropping, better decisions about drone usage, better decisions about, say for example, deciding that which welfare schemes do farmers need in the rural segment. Similarly, we say that to support better quality gram panchayat planning, better quality rural land planning also, we need these plans in place, remember. What are certain parts and components of Swamitva? One is creating the course network. Now please remember, very interesting, course network. What is this? Continuously operating reference stations. They will work as ground control points. Very interesting, ground control points. Tell them with short forms, it's very interesting. Important activity for proper geo mapping, geo references, so that the demarcation, the boundaries of lands can be created because of this proper ground control points. They will be able to track the exact limit of lands. Second is large scale mapping for drones. Yes, drones are a reality in Indian agriculture. Just now you saw the Drone Didi scheme. One question will easily come in this. In mains, though 100% it will come. In prelims also, I expect one or two questions from these schemes will 100% be there. So better focus. We are talking about large scale mapping using drones. High resolution imagery can be done, and therefore people can be given property rights in a very systematic manner, right, on the basis of maps or data. So once you have the property cards and you are giving it to the right owners, a lot of problems can be sorted out. Then you have the IEC initiatives, awareness program to sensitize. It's a very beautiful word. When you sensitize somebody, you make somebody sensitive towards a problem. You make people aware of the problem. A word that you should really use as a sacred, in a sacrosanct way for GS paper 2 social justice, okay? Because everywhere we talk about sensitizing, creating awareness among people about how the scheme works, its method, and what benefits will you have if you implement the scheme. Another thing is Gram Manchitra. What is Manchitra? What is Manchitra? So when we talk about Manchitra, we often talk about a kind of visual imagery. So we are creating, and spatial means space, geographical space. So therefore, we are creating digital maps, digital mapping under the drone survey for creating such tools, such nice visual map tools, which would implement the scheme better. Then we talk about online monitoring. The government will make sure that whether the exact measurement, exact transferring of records is being done, and project management units will be created at both central level and at the state level in the respective regions, so that the scheme is implemented successfully. So all these are critical components of the Swamitva. And with that, quickly, another very interesting scheme. I think you already know about it because it's not a new scheme. It's a launching or another nuanced version of a previously existing scheme that today we are planning to continue. The scheme called Atal Innovation Mission, the AIM 2.0. Now, on that note, let me ask you a very interesting question. You all know about the Swachh Bharat mission, don't you? Right? You know the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan or the Swachh Bharat mission. If I say that it also came under two versions, 1 and 2. The first one had come with the intention of promoting cleanliness and to stop the problem of open defecation in India by making sure that we create OD plus districts, open defecation free districts, to abolish the problem of manual scavenging in India, which is pertaining to some lower or so-called backward castes in India. Correct? Today if I ask you, what was the key, what was the main intention behind Swachh Bharat Mission 2.0? There was a particular name given to it. The first one was only cleanliness mission, Swachh Bharat. Second one had a very different tag to it. Can I give you a hint? It ended with a word called vertical. Which vertical am I talking about, and what was the tag? What was the name of the Swachh Bharat Mission 2.0? Please post your answer in the comment. It will be very interesting to see, because very important question that is also for the exam, because also it pertains to a lot of constitutional provisions. We can talk about Article 17, we can talk about Article 21, we can also talk about many directive principles. So please tell me, and then I'll tell you all those directive principles. Okay, so yes, we are renovating the mission to boost innovation ecosystem until 2028. This will happen under this mission launched by Niti Aayog, National Institution for Transforming India in 2014, which had replaced your Planning Commission, which is based on the agenda of creating what kind of federalism? What kind of federalism? Cooperative federalism. What is another word for cooperative federalism? Very important for UPSC. What is another word for cooperative federalism? Starts with M. Please post it in the comment box and we can discuss about it. Very crucial, very important, don't forget that. So Atal Innovation Mission launched in 2016 by Niti Aayog, which works on the basis of the down to top modeling, cooperative federalism basis, as a think tank for better planning in India, has launched this mission for better innovation and better entrepreneurship to encourage people to start business, because we are living under the era of Atmanirbhar Bharat or the Skill India mission, where we agree that everybody cannot possibly get a job in the formal sector, and the informal sector has lots of abuse and lots of labor exploitation. So why not have an alternative and train people into entrepreneurial skills? And therefore today we are trying to create problem solving skills among people and go towards innovation. Start an ecosystem of research and development, R&D, and start implementing more innovative ideas which could create more money, more business for people. So under this we have certain components. The first one is ATL, Atal Tinkering Labs. Atal Tinkering Labs talk about creating innovation labs for students from grade 6 to grade 12, teach them technologies like 3D printing, manufacturing using 3D printing. Now you might ask, what is the big usage of 3D printing in the innovation sector? Oh, it's massive. Not only can you create cheap, local, hand manufactured components for many consumer durables, but in case you don't know, there is this whole big domain in the healthcare segment where you create artificial limbs for people who experience disability. So in that also 3D is having a massive usage, by creating artificial, very AI based natural like limbs, which is making a difference to the lives of tremendous number of people. So 3D technology is very innovative and it has solutions to so many health and technology problems in India. So that's one idea here. Another idea is Atal Incubation Centers, the AICS. This works as offering startups, enable people to create startups in India. This reminds me of two more missions from 2015. I think you know what I'm talking about. Yes, you do. Skill India Mission and Startup India Mission. Please answer in the comment box. 10% funds under both these missions were allocated to a specific group of Indian society which is vulnerable. Which is that group? Please comment and let me know. Okay, so Atal Incubation Labs encourage startup culture to allow young and innovative entrepreneurs to begin their own commercial business, and under the Atal scheme they will be funded, hands holding will be done and mentorship will be done. They will be provided guidance. Another thing is Atal Community Innovation Centers, the ACICS. Here we are promoting innovation under regions like tier 2 to 3 cities and tribal areas. Long back. Let me quickly remind you, these are things we should never forget actually. If we study in a very fun manner, if we discuss, talk and enjoy and study. There was a mission called Goal Mission. Do you remember that mission? It came during the COVID pandemic time, 2020-2021. The Goal Mission came with the objective that the government agencies would go to the tribal areas and then train the young tribal boys and girls in using smartphone technology, so that later they can go and teach the technology to many other old members of the community. What was the purpose? To track vaccination, to enable better market access for tribal products, and to encourage tribal culture from being dispersed among people. Also to enable them to have right education, right healthcare knowledge through online modicum. Okay, so to fight the problem of digital divide among the tribals, that was done long back. That was called Goal. Does it not sound similar to this one? It does, right? So always keep relating. See, no scheme will be very different, except very few. Like the Drone Didi was a very innovative scheme. But usually all these are extension of the previous ideas. So please, you should know it in a link. It's easy for you. So now to provide under smaller cities like the second tier or the third tier cities and the tribal areas, we will provide more business ideas and innovation centers that people can come and generate, share, expand these ideas. Similarly, we have the Atal New India Challenge, the ANIC, where we talk about how funding, monitoring, technology based solutions on national issues could actually work out. So this is more about teaching people to find solutions to economic, healthcare and agriculture problems at a national level. And now, what is the exactly intention behind, what's the purpose or the objective behind AIM 2.0? Well, building on the success of previous initiatives like Atal Tinkering Labs and Atal Incubation Centers, this new version of the scheme AIM 2.0 talks about scaling or improving, enhancing the capacity of building more and more of such existing programs and also launching new ones to promote entrepreneurship in India. Now, the reason why majority of Indians continue to be poor and outside the job market is also lack of innovation and entrepreneur skills. Remember, when we talk about low female labor participation rate in India, a lot of people often complain. They keep on complaining that why in India do women do not work in the formal sector. Like in the recent National Family Health Survey also, it was discovered that majority of women are victims of poverty. The reason is that today as we enter 2025, we realize that less than 20% women are working in the formal sector. Is that not heartbreaking? Why this gap? The biggest reason of the gap is that there is very low entrepreneurship in women. Just now we spoke about your, the problem of self-help group, and I was just teaching you that how sometimes self-help groups really determine the future of women because they allow them to start a business. So the need is very real because we do not have enough women in business. There is innovation and idea, but there is no money or there is no hands holding or mentorship to scale that. So in such situations, missions like the Startup Mission or missions like the Seed India, Skill India, Atal Innovation, they really support infrastructure of entrepreneurship. Only solution to the problem of unemployment in India. You cannot suddenly give everybody a formal sector job, but definitely you can encourage them to begin a business. And that's the purpose here. India ranked 39th in the Global Innovation Index. And India is hosting third largest startup ecosystem in the world, and yet we have 18% women in the formal sector. So that's why the need of these missions is very, very huge. Now, what are the key programs? Language inclusion, yes. A very good question, let me ask you. Which are the two states which had last year started the mission of allowing medical education in local language, in Hindi language, I suppose? Which were the two states, or which was the first state? Let me put it this way. Which was the first state which allowed medical education, medical entrance exam, everything to be done in Hindi language? Why? Because many people have the knowledge, they have the skill, but because of linguistic disability, they are not able to achieve the mark. So today in India, even under the new education policy 2020, we are focusing a lot on vernacular languages, okay? Bhashini app, all of that is in the same direction. The use of AI into new language modeling, same thing. Here also under Atal Mission, we are saying that language inclusion is important, the LIPI, known as LIPI. LIPI also means script. So it also plans to establish innovation centers in 22 scheduled languages in India. Which schedule of the Constitution? I had asked a question, very few people replied. Why? Do we not know the schedules of the Constitution? We have to know by heart. Yes, we are talking about the 8th schedule. So we have to support the native languages. Only then more people can participate because they may have idea or innovation. If you allow them to carry it out in their own language, they may also go ahead and do research and innovation then. Frontier program. This sets up 2,500 new laboratories and areas in areas such as Jammu and Kashmir and the Northeast, where the culture is even lower, entrepreneurship and employment is very poor, and therefore these come under the aspirational districts. What are the aspirational districts? Aspirational districts where the performance is low, and hence we need to improve the performance in a very big way. Similarly, we talk about ecosystem enhancement initiatives. We say that let's train teachers, trainers, other mentors who can help people in taking up innovation idea, mentorship. Sometimes we also rope in industry experts. We bring deliberately people from multinational companies, professors from universities who can come and teach young entrepreneurs to scale up the business. Of course, we talk about sandboxes. Yesterday also we had spoken about, day before yesterday in one of the discussions, we were talking about the sandbox system. Think about it, which one was that? Don't forget that. So we are saying that we have to make deep technology startup with extended investment needs, okay? Then we talk about how global innovation and collaborations can be done. Yes, we'll have partnerships with, say, Global Tinkering Olympiad. We will have it with WIPO, the G20, the group of 20. So the startup mechanism will become more enhanced if we have more global networking and partnership. That's another component of the mission. Now, another two important things is output quality improvement program. So to enable the startups to produce products which have better consumer usage, which have better sophistication, so that people adopt these things easily, we also are establishing 10 accelerators, promoters in key sectors through the PPP model. Private public partnership. Now don't get confused, because whenever we talk about Article 25 of the Constitution, I keep saying PPP. Don't get confused, that's just my mnemonic of remembering that article. That's very different. That's about religious minority. We're not talking about it here. This PPP is not even that economics one, purchasing power parity. No, we are talking about public-private partnership. Through this, more output scaling will be done. Then, of course, we have Atal Sectoral Innovation Launchpads, ASIL, 10 IDEX-like platforms, industrial innovation development platforms will be created across ministries to find more and more solutions to scale up the startups in India in important critical sectors like health, agriculture, education. Now the next news, we are talking about the Vidya Lakshmi Scheme. PM-Vidyalaxmi Scheme, Pradhan Mantri Vidya Lakshmi Scheme, recently approved by the Union Government. What is the scheme? The name itself suggests that we are talking about Vidya. Vidya is education, knowledge, skill. So here, it's a central sector scheme launched by the Union Government to provide what? Financial assistance, monetary assistance to students who are very well performing students in the academics, meritorious students who get good grades, who are very interested in studies, and they will be encouraged or given money, almost like a scholarship scheme. Let's put it this way, almost like a scholarship scheme. We have the post-metric, pre-metric for so many backward communities. So this one is about scholarship to enable very talented students to take up higher education, because in India, another problem with meritorious students is that school dropout level is very high, specifically in case of females. The girl dropout is high. So even when they are very good students up till, say, 10th grade or the secondary grade, suddenly there is a dropout from school, either because of poverty or the need for labor, or sometimes because of religious customs like, say, marriage or early motherhood and all of that. So again, that's a major threat to our demographic dividend, and hence these scholarship schemes could enable pursuing education continuously. Then the scheme offers collateral free. Collateral free, you do not have to show any guarantee. Without any guarantee, without any, you can say, land proof, or without any document, without any jewelry, without any asset also, you can get a free loan for studying. You don't even need a guarantor. Many times to get a loan, you need somebody to guarantee your loan. Okay, so that if you default, the guarantor can come and fill it up for you, or to face the consequences. But here it's very good, because poor people lack both. Nobody will take guarantee for them, and neither do they have a collateral. That's why I told you a few minutes before that poor people have a problem of poor credit absorption capacity. No wonder they don't get loans. So this problem can be combated, because these young students who are coming from poor backgrounds are being given absolutely guarantee free loans, and they don't even need a guarantor to sign up for them. They will give loans. That's a wonderful approach, because also it's happening digitally. So that is very good. Always remember, in India there is a very hidden benefit of digital welfare schemes. What's that benefit? Even when we talk about the schemes for the transgender, today the government has enabled a system where the transgender population can apply for digital iCards and track the online application just by the use of smart technology. They don't have to go to anybody. Why these schemes help is because in our society, which is deeply stratified on the basis of gender, religion, caste and language, sometimes physically being present to avail a scheme also discourages people from participating in that. So the beauty behind digitization is to enable that lack of physical presence, and hence many more people readily come and avail these schemes. It also means fairness in distributing the benefits. So that's why it's a very welcome thing for a country like India, where we still reel under traditional biases a lot, social, cultural, economic nature. So the budget is massive, 3,600 crore for 24 to 2031. That's the target year. And of course, it is completely in line with the national education policy. Promote vocational skill, promote vernacular language, enable higher education for poor students, enable digitization of education so that we can encourage many more people to participate in the workforce. What an irony we are facing, honestly. Largest demographic dividend in the world, largest population in the world, excellent human resource, and yet very poor implementation. Very, very poor, very porous workforce. So that's why these schemes do wonders there. So what are the key features of the mission? Who's eligible? 860 quality higher education institutions will definitely participate here, who have top ranking in the NIRF rankings. They will help these students. Another thing is that we also include, as I said, collateral free loans to all eligible students. Now, another important thing is application is completely digitized. These are the most three important points you need to remember, not every nitty-gritty of the scheme. Then also please understand that full interest subvention for students with annual income of 4 lakh per annum under PM-USHA Protsahan scheme. So Protsahan means you are encouraging students to study. There is an existing scheme called Uchchitar Shiksha Protsahan, where you are encouraging students to take Uch education, higher education. Central sector interest subsidy scheme, that's also a subset of the scheme. Okay. Now collateral free loans again mean people will readily absorb them. They will take them. So therefore payments will be made through central bank digital currency wallets and e-vouchers. Brilliant way. Very easy mechanism of usage, ensuring better usage of the scheme really by the beneficiaries. Now another important thing is that the recently union government has also approved the ONOS scheme. ONOS. What does this stand for? It stands for One Nation One Subscription Scheme. And what are we talking about? We are talking about how the union government says that let's provide all across India countrywide access to international high impact scholarly research articles and journals, publications for students, teachers, researchers who are engaged in academia in the higher institutes of learning, the HEIs, and the research and development institutions in India. Now the problem of patenting and copywriting is quite tremendous. Today we know we all have social media, we all have the internet, we have the world wide web from where we can procure any information. We have the AI to give us any information, but sometimes what happens when students and faculties in higher institutes of learning are doing a research, sometimes they need better quality academic input. Now that kind of input is something that has to be trusted, it has to be something that's peer reviewed, it has to be coming from an already established authority. These are not things you will find easily floating on AI or easily floating for free on internet, because many of them are copyrighted by various publications across the world from the best of universities. But sometimes even at the domestic level they are needed. They are needed to learn from. They are needed to be included in your own research. In that case, innovations like the ONOS can do wonders, because if you're a teacher, if you want to include certain important points in the curriculum that you are teaching, if you want to improve your pedagogy, your style of teaching, or if as a young researcher you want better inputs about a problem, you are doing a secondary research, okay, you need some processed material for your research, and if you have an access to very high ranked articles, journals, magazines, academic publications available easily online, then imagine how easy would it be to incorporate it in your work and to produce a higher quality and a more trustable, reliable work. That's the beauty of the scheme. Again, the larger purpose is not just to help academia or the students, but the larger purpose is also to promote more research and development and innovation. In India, we lack that, not only in the industry, in academia also. Like many institutes of a higher learning, the top-notch ones, also lack adequate research and innovation. So that's the purpose behind such schemes. So this would actually make the access to high quality knowledge more democratic. Allow people to have usage of that knowledge. If it is protected always under various copyrights, and if you cannot access to it, then what's the point? You cannot use it and enhance your own work. So therefore, it will also now be included in the tier 2 tier 3 city public institutions, and this aims to actually promote more interdisciplinary research also. Sometimes there are students and teachers of one subject, say for example physics. Now they might want some data to be borrowed from other subjects, say for example they would be interested in something like something related to AI and its usage. Maybe they need some input from agriculture research, maybe they need some input from medical research or some kind of mathematical or statistical research. If they do not have access to it, what happens? Will be they will face a kind of intellectual disability in expanding the research output. So this will be taken care of under India's vision of Viksit Bharat 2047 and also the National Education Policy 2020 to enable a more research and innovation culture in Indian universities, colleges and schools. How will it work? The government will speak to and negotiate with related teams, related agencies and pay money for a single, all India single, one country wide subscription to international very famous journals and articles and databases. India will pay, the government will pay for an all India access. Wonderful. The centralized subscription, the government will be the subscriber, the central government will take the subscription, and now there is no need for anybody to really struggle to have access to them. And individual institutions will now, they do not have to really bear the cost of it because it's expensive. Most often they don't do it. It's very expensive for them. They have to pay a hefty amount in dollars or euros. Now that's not needed. Now even smaller institutions can have these accessible for free. So that would mean a better integration of the intellectual domain. Also it improves your research, it improves the quality of your output, it gives you more foresight into various kind of problems that you are researching upon, and many people will therefore find it easy to take up research, and they will, and that's exactly what we want, to have more minds to do research and innovation in India. Now why is there a need for this? One important need is to remove access barriers. There is a lot of problem today in people coming from smaller developing economies and institutes of these economies to have access to global high quality research papers, and that's always something that keeps them from improving their work and learning. So that will be taken care of. Another need for it could be that the global academic publishing industry actually generates $19 billion as an income, and the profit margins are as high as 40%. So now what happened? This complete profit going to private universities and private companies who are owning the private publication agencies who are owning all the material, then sell it for a very higher price. They won't release it easily. So once the government comes in the picture, that kind of a high cost imbalance also comes down. Another thing is that it removes financial burden on Indian researchers to privately fund for this access to research, and then it also helps Indian researchers actually to have high quality material which has been peer reviewed also. Another thing is it also takes care of piracy, because when you have access to this material but you are doing it through government, naturally there will be no piracy. You will not be going ahead and doing a kind of copying, or you will not exactly steal that material, because you will follow protocols, because it's happening through the government and it's not a private access included here, it's through the government access mechanism. So therefore it keeps it more transparent and more trustworthy method of borrowing from other people's research. What are the key features of ONOS? One of the biggest key features is that you will have now Indian researchers, universities, institutes of higher learning will now have access to 13,000 international e-journals or e-magazines published by 30 major global publishers like Oxford University Press, Cambridge Press and so on. Similarly, more than 6,300 higher education institutes will be involved here. Okay, central government research institutes will be involved here. Now implementation, it will be done through a unified digital portal. Please remember, that's very important. The UDP, Unified Digital Platform, managed through the Information and Library Network. It's an autonomous inter-university center created by the University Grants Commission, UGC. Now another thing is Anusandhan National Research Foundation, which means that this ANRF organization will keep on systematically every now and then in a routine way keep reviewing that how are the resources being used and how much of that is impacting Indian authors' work. Also that will take care of the issues related to plagiarism and authenticity of Indian research, so that's why quite important there. And now the next news talks about PM-USHA. We are talking about Pradhan Mantri Uchitar. Uchitar is higher. Shiksha is education, Abhiyan is scheme or any kind of mission. So yes, we are talking about how the government has approved a huge, once again, reinvestment of rupees 676 crore for developing infrastructure to roll out in a much better way the Pradhan Mantri Uchchitar Shiksha Abhiyan, the PM-USHA in various cities, city colleges and universities in Odisha. Okay, to improve the educational outcomes, higher education research outcomes, and ultimately what? Labor force outcomes. Now, under this mission, PM-USHA mission, it's a centrally sponsored government scheme under the Ministry of Education. Please remember, the biggest backbone of the mission is that it is resting on the principles and suggestions of the NEP, National Education Policy 2020. The ultimate aim is a three-pillared approach: access, equity, excellence. Have access to right education, make it equitable across various economic segments, have equal right to education. It's also in right with your Right to Education Act, which is a fundamental right today under article. Which article? Under which article do we talk about the right to education? Ages 6 to age 14. 86th Amendment Act 2002. Which article am I talking about? Yes, please. Comment box, please. Okay, so yes, of course, we talk about more excellence in education at every level. So what are the key objectives, key features? Quality improvement, improving the quality of curriculum, pedagogy, that's teaching style of the teacher, improving quality in hiring teachers. Apart from that, following fixed standards across the state among various colleges when it comes to course design, course structure and classroom methodology. Similarly, same kind of accreditation programs, same kind of tests, assessments and therefore accreditation to the students. Next thing is reforms implementation. We are talking about creating certain reforms by allowing more autonomy, more freedom in decision making to state universities. Now this also is one issue that's hugely under question. Don't be surprised if you see it in 2025 mains paper, GS paper 2, education. The question might ask you the debate about UGC's over-involvement in universities and the lack of autonomy on the part of various private and state universities in enhancing infrastructure, changing curriculum and redesigning their education system. We had discussed this in the Hindu analysis just very recently, I think 1 week before. Okay, so here also we are talking about the same thing under PM-USHA, give more autonomy to state universities in implementing various programs regarding smart education, regarding curriculum, regarding teaching methodology, assessment programs and introducing or removing few subjects. Then we talk about NEP 2020. NEP is saying that we must have better funding for higher education centers and that's exactly in line with that. Having said that, which are the key objectives of PM-USHA? Equity, inclusion, yes, no matter which financial background you come from, particularly if you are a vulnerable citizen. Say suppose you come from the so-called scheduled caste, scheduled tribe background, other backward classes, the SEBCs, particularly these are known as the socially and educationally backward classes, or whether you're a woman, whether you come from that background, or even if for that matter you are a very economically weaker student, irrespective of being from a general category, you will actually find a lot of benefit in your education once the entire education system is revamped and suited to your needs. So we are also talking about a customization here. Customization which suits the needs, where the education program suits the needs of all the backward people. Also we talk about the specially abled population. Now we talk about employment enhancement. Now this is completely in line with your new education policy 2020. The key feature of NEP, there are many key features, I know, I keep talking about them, but the most important feature was that why, despite the fact that we have so many colleges and universities, India is quite well known for its education sector in fact, but the real problem is that still our educated youth have very poor employability in the global market. Why is that? Because all the education that we are giving in school happens to be a very static education. Agreed, it gives you diverse subject knowledges, but it doesn't give you the kind of education which enables you to find jobs in the market, because this education that we impart in our schools and colleges is not job centric, it is not innovative, it is not skill dependent, it doesn't enable you to find jobs in the formal sector global market, and that's what we are talking about. Either you provide a skill based education or you focus more into vocational education. Vocational education could be anything. anything from doing something that's craft oriented, art oriented, or theater oriented, or something that is in designing product architectural oriented, but something that enables you to do a business, something that enables you to actually do an innovation. So this exactly is what we are trying to create. To support this initiative, under the PM-USHA, in all the colleges and universities, one special employment unit, office or cell will be created, so that students could be given better guidance on how to find jobs. More companies could be got in the campus for better employment opportunities, for better campus hiring, and of course these people are taught how to take industry market relevant education, how to take up short programs, certifications. Ultimately the objective is to make people more employable at the end of the day. Okay, so certain important components of PM-USHA would be the MERU, MERU, multidisciplinary education and research universities. These will be created to enable multiple kind of new subjects that enable skill enhancement of the people. Massive funding is going in, and about 35 such universities will be created for better vocational education. Grants to strengthen universities. More money coming to universities for better ecosystem, better classroom design, more classroom, improving capacity to accommodate more students. We are talking about strengthen students. Yes, we are giving the grant of 5 crores out of the total corpus of 2005 crores, so that again you can do better innovations, better technology implementation, better smart hubs in your colleges. Now we have new model degree colleges. Initially 40 model colleges will be created, which can work as a sample of inspiring many other colleges to design themselves this way. Also, it's a good experiment for the government exactly how successfully the scheme works out. We talk about gender inclusion also, because of the poor gender divide in education, especially higher education, high female dropout, poor female labor force participation. We say that in 50 districts, we are focusing on definitely trapping more female students in taking up higher education and improving their market job employability. Then it also emphasizes on employment cells, as we just spoke about, so that the graduates from universities can directly have a discussion with academics, industry, market, so that their employability overall scales up. The scope of the scheme is of course huge, because we are giving focus on some priority districts which have a higher segment, higher numerical segment of vulnerable population, the ST, SC, OBC, women. Of course, we are talking about remote districts, geographically, spatially remote. We are talking about aspirational districts which have the need of such education, which are still suffering because of poor laggard education systems. And certainly we have 50% of such districts in identified UTs and states which will be given importance. We will talk about low gross enrollment ratio. We will give more importance to those districts where enrollment in schools and colleges is less. Second thing is, we will definitely give more importance to districts which have higher female or vulnerable populations, as I just said. Of course, we are giving more importance to border areas because of the uncertain spatial location that they have, constant tensions or constant stressors that disable people from taking good education. Then of course we are also taking care of regions which are characterized by the red zone problem. We talk about the left-wing extremism, the Maoism and all that. And of course we are talking about creating more gender parity. There are various schemes, where there are various themes rather in the National Education Policy 2020 which resonate with this intervention. Restructuring of school education. Earlier we had the 10+2 model. Now of course we are moving to the 5+3+3+4 model. Given that today the government feels 5 years of pre-education, sometimes you can also call it Anganwadi education, very predominant in rural areas, it's becoming mandatory now. So without at least 3 years of Anganwadi and then entering school, it is impossible for a child to cope up with academic pressure. Similarly, we talk about early childhood intervention. As I just said, children from 3 to 6 years will have to have some foundational numerical and linguistic learning. Otherwise, later education outcomes are very poor for such people. Then, of course, we talk about pedagogy. Pedagogy is the style of teaching. So, we talk about training our teachers into teaching with experiment, storytelling, using materials in teaching, showing visuals in teaching, showing maps in teaching. Of course, we talk about multilingual teaching, allowing students to study in their mother tongue from grade 5th to until grade 5th, and sometimes also to grade 8th, so that they are not left behind. Let language not be a barrier in taking up education. Of course, we also have the 3 language formula, where all the North Indian states will take up Hindi and English and a language from other states, and the states in the peninsular belt will take up English and their own language and Hindi. So that also enables national integration. Okay, it's not a new concept, but of course it's being reintroduced. And we talk about the parak, a much better way of testing the students, not just passive examination which tests rote learning, but we talk about regular assessments, which parak again in Hindi means to judge, to assess somebody's performance. So we are judging how all round development is being taken place. We talk about definitely including the disadvantaged segment in school. Even your midday meal scheme is quite resonating with this only, because they always say in the system of education that better nutrition outcome always results in better educational outcome. Okay, so now we also have teacher qualification that's under a scanner, because rather than having a short certificate or a short diploma course for teaching, it's mandatory that teachers take up a 4-year bachelor's of education program, so that they are thorough with all the nuances of child behavior, child psychology, child teaching. Okay, that's very important, and this is been mandatory at least from 2030 onwards. Of course, it's being still spoken about. There's a lot of controversy going in implementation. Some states have implemented some ideas, some are still struggling to do so. So it is always a time-taking thing. We talk about multiple entry exit options. Please allow those students who had dropped out unfortunately to carry education again, so that there's not a complete lack of education and a wastage of human resource. We also talk about at least 50% of learners to be exposed to vocational education by 2025. Yes, that's very important. As I just said earlier, that vocational education means skill-based education. You will have a higher chance of finding a job rather than taking passive static education and just being educated and unemployed. That doesn't make sense. And of course, we talk about digital literacy. Yes. Now, whether it be a rural schools, whether government schools, whether government funded schools, whether private schools, under the NEP it's mandatory to integrate technology in learning. Otherwise, the digital divide looms large, and it reflects in lack of employability as students grow up higher. And now with this, we come to an end of today's segment on various schemes in the news in the last 1 year, and we shall continue the part 2 of the session, where we shall scan some more relevant schemes, particularly the UDAN scheme, which has again done a revolutionary intervention in providing air mobility to a lot of people who come from a poor economic background across India. So that's something that we are going to definitely talk about here. Okay, so with that, we come to an end of this wonderful informative session. Please do keep me posted on all the comments and all the questions that we spoke about, and I'll see you soon with another such segment in the coming few days. Thank you so much. Yes, sir.